So, ladies and gentlemen, pleasure to be here. My name is Robert Stabler, Managing Director of Koenig and Bauer Durst. I've been in digital printing for longer than I care to remember, with Xerox, HP, and some others in the long distance past. Koenig and Bauer Durst, we're wholly in the packaging segment, making post-print solutions for the corrugated segment and the folding carton segment. And I really want to talk today a little bit about the economics behind digital printing in the corrugated space and the folding carton space. What are the trends that are driving the transformation? And how equipped is digital printing to go into a converting plant and to really get a mainstream position? So, Sean talked about run length distribution coming down. And many more smaller runs in the market. And this slide really just demonstrates why that is actually happening, right? You have continued SKU proliferation, you have this need with forecast predictability going down, the need for velocity through plants. There's greater amount of regionalization, this notion of rethinking supply chains, nearshoring, rather than producing in the Far East. We're seeing differences in supply chain that are causing disruptions to demand. And the regulatory environment is changing, right? I mean, it's changing. We're all impacted by it, both from a brand's desire to show leadership when it comes to waste, to being environmentally friendly, but also the oh, good, we're back. So what does that mean? The number of jobs per day is going up for a plant. The average run length is coming down. Complexity is going up. Turnaround time is coming down. And you have to do that all in the context of reducing waste and complexity in the plant. And, what I'm going to talk through today is a little bit about the advantages of digital printing in this context, and how converters should think about digital printing in this context. So what does a converter want? Well, typically when we talk to a converter, they're industrial plants, they're very cost focused, usually. And the first part of any business case that is built for them is they have to optimize print cost, right? If your solution doesn't enable them to actually reduce cost on certain jobs, then, it's a non-starter. The second piece is that they want to have greater flexibility, right? How can they have this fast turnaround of many jobs when they're used to dealing in an analog process of getting plates in, getting one on the press, doing the wash down, etc. How do you get that velocity in a plant? And then I think the value proposition part of it is, how do you become a supply chain partner to your brand, right? How do you optimize the total cost of supply chain? The waste in the brand's warehouse, the obsolescence in the brand's warehouse, the stock keeping that everybody has to do. And then I think the really exciting piece is, the marketing piece, right? How can you become a marketing partner to a brand to help them actually sell more, to have greater standout on the shelf in this time of huge clutter? And the solution obviously is you need to have a technology or technologies that are highly productive, highly versatile, and flexible. And so I'm going to start with a little case study that we did. There was a plant, you can see the details of it here, 40 million square meters roughly they converted. They had a mix of jobs. Uncoated, coated, a lot of food applications, a lot of food trays. And this particular plant shared all their data with us. So we got, the data per job, the run length per job, the OEE on their flexo presses for the jobs, their hourly rates, every piece of data. The only piece of data we didn't get was actually their substrate costs. So we had everything that we could do an analysis and come back to them and say, well, this is where digital printing may fit into your operations. And what we found, they had three presses, 2 standalone flexo printers, And what we in essence found is that there was a break even for digital somewhere between 6,500 and 8,500 square meters, right, for their particular jobs. And that's obviously based on the run length they had. It's based on the area coverage of the ink that they had. And I'm going to come on to, the simplification of the process in the second and the economics. They had a typical analog plant would have, the data processing normally off-site. You would have the plate production, plate transport, intermediate storage, plate assembly, et cetera, the ink mixing process. And of course, with digital print, you go direct from data processing into the digital press, which of course implies that you need to get to know data, get to know color as you move into digital. But this particular plant, yearly output 40 million square meters, it was actually for 25% of their jobs less expensive to produce digitally, right? So they could retire one of their flexo presses, they could put a digital press in, make more money. And the other big piece of this story is that they would actually increase their overall available capacity, because if you're doing very short runs on a flexo press, doing the ink mixing, you have issues with plate manufacturing, etc. The OEE on the flexo press, with a mix of a lot of short run jobs, is very, very low, right? So they were increasing also their theoretical capacity. So they would have, on the 10 million square meters, they would save 2.5 million a year in production costs, taking hourly rate to hourly rate, all costs taken into account, payback 2 to 3 years, and the other benefits, right? The shorter lead times, because you're cutting out all those process steps, less complexity. They would actually, we didn't put this into the calculation because we didn't know the cost of the board, but they would actually reduce waste by about 160,000 square meters. And because the digital printing process that we were showing them, it was totally non-touch, non-crush, they could use potentially get savings from a lighter weight top liner. So, that was the sort of bedrock on which a customer would just start to justify why they should go digital. But I think the exciting thing is that when you get a digital press, you get your sales team trained. It takes a while, right? I mean, it takes a while to get everything in place. But then you can really start selling added value applications that have higher value to the brand and potentially to you as a converter. So you can do versioning. I called it mass customization here, but you can do versioning of the different brands with no incremental cost, right? Or minimal incremental costs. Numbering, sequential barcoding, track and trace as standard with a digital press. One of the things that we've really seen is that digital printing has really good results on plain brown boards. So we're seeing a move from coated to plain white to plain brown with that echo look and feel, with still very, very good quality. So that's another new product offering that is possible with digital. And then, of course, there's this whole notion of managing the product life cycle, how you succeed at the beginning with a product startup or fail quick, but without a lot of waste. And then how at the end of the product life cycle you can make sure you don't have obsolescence. And digital printing has a key role to play there. So a couple of examples. This is Balsam. They are a cookie brand in Germany. They used to, they have shelf-ready packaging. They used to have only one variant of their shelf-ready packaging. They now change for every individual product the shelf-ready packaging to make sure that they have greater standout in store and to increase sales. This one I really like, Meligen Hela. They are sort of a delicatessen brand that sells in supermarkets. And they took the decision, rather than just having a standard point of sale offering and a standard product offering to change their whole packaging and point of sale into regional promotions. And you can see, you know, they had, their claim is that they sold 4 times more pre-assembled displays because of doing this, you know, having an Oktoberfest offering and then going into the retail and having a different offering. So it allowed them, in essence, to use digital printing to get standout in store. And standout in store led to, in this case, to greater sales. But it's the simple ones that I think are sometimes the most striking. This is Comsa is a brand that is selling consumer electronics telephones. It's a fulfillment company, and you know they used secondary labeling on a pack because they had to, right? They didn't have another solution, and they went to an on-pack labeling that could be read on the filling line, and they just saved money just through a simple thing like doing that with digital printing. Right, and you know, I think when you have, in essence, you have barcoding, QR codes, security features as free with digital printing, this can potentially be a very, very powerful add-on. And I think, you know, the other area that we see is in consumer electronics, in household goods. I mean, there's another case study from KBA, but this one with Stiebel Eltron is how they could, in essence, have greater complexity in their SKUs by having local languages, but having simpler packaging and doing it all in one run. So in essence, they have all language versions in one print edition. So they're not printing 20 languages on the box. They're printing the individual languages based on the demand. And they're really optimizing their packaging to their forecasting with a very, very complex range of SKUs. So, and these things, when I talk about the 50 to 80%, these are things that you get the digital press in place, and then you can really leverage the technology to really be selling added value applications to the brands. The other thing that I think is key with adopting digital printing, most converters, certainly that I've dealt with, have really not invested a huge amount in the automation of their workflow processes, their color management processes. And this, you know, it has been a little bit of a barrier, I think, to the adoption of digital print. But, you know, now there's really no excuse. There are multiple workflow solutions that are out there that you can manage hundreds of jobs cost effectively without any human touch points, all getting more sophisticated with gamut verification, brand color matching capability. In inkjet, obviously, ink cost is an issue, and how you save cost automatically in the workflow is a standard. So I think in terms of the robustness of the technology, I think there are 2 elements. One is, you know, how agile can you be through your workflow processes? I would say there's a big tick. That capability is there. And the second is, if you put in a digital press to replace a flexo press, you have to be able to do a very, very broad range of applications. You know, to put in a digital press and say, but we can't do this, we can't do that, we can't do this because, you know, you're limiting the availability in the market. So, you know, the color gamut on digital is very good. CMYK, probably 75% of Pantone colors within the delta E of 2. With 6 colors, you go up to 85% in corrugated. You know, having sophisticated priming technologies allows you to print on the lowest cost board that is in the marketplace. I think white is going to become really, really important, particularly with this trend towards from coated media to brown. Thank you. Coated media to brown, from coated media to plain white to brown. And then, you know, the other thing is, you know, as we know, a lot of the volume in this market, maybe 2/3, touches the food industry. And we believe that as the regulatory environment gets tougher and tougher to comply, that water-based inks are going to become standard. So you need to have a digital print platform that can do all these things to be a universal press that can replace a flexo press. So, where does that leave us? I think the addressable volume for digital will continue to grow. Sean looked in his crystal ball and had a look at where the volumes were going. Tipping points, as you know, are really tough to predict in markets, but I think the systemic trends really are there, with run lengths coming down, with the need for velocity. The digital print is going to grow. Converters, I think, every time we have done a case study, we really do see that there's the potential to fill 1 to 2 shifts with existing work on digital, and then the icing on the cake is the added value that can be shifted. But it does take a different orientation, right? The orientation has got to be around value. It's got to be around selling. It's got to be around engaging with brands and their marketing departments to be successful. So prerequisites for success: highly productive systems, universal digital presses able to fill a broad range of applications, and of course there's going to be this continual drive to make the economics of digital print more competitive. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm around for the next 2 days. Any questions? It's like a speed dating session here. Any questions I'll be happy to take in the breaks that we have.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Give him a round of applause. Thank you, Robert.